Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching India Today Global. The big stories that we'll be bringing to you is the Trump-Xi meeting that is to take place in South Korea. Also, the fact that Trump has praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but that comes with the rider of him praising Pakistan Premier Shehbaz Sharif as well. There are lots more stories coming up. We will focus on the worst humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in Sudan as well. But first up, breaking news coming in. Well, news just coming in. Florida cancels H1B visas in state universities. This is absolutely a big breaking news that is coming in from the United States of America. Governor Ron DeSantis said he was directing the Florida Board of Governors to pull the plug on the use of H1B visas in state universities. DeSantis said that H1B audits found colleges were bringing in Chinese people on visas to talk to students about public policy, among other issues. Earlier, the Florida governor had said that H1B visas mostly benefit Indians, calling it a total scam. The governor said it either repurposed or cancelled more than $33 million worth of DEI-related grants. Those are the details coming in at this point in time. Florida has indeed scrapped all the H1B visas applicable to jobs in universities. The focus basically are Chinese students, but then we'll have to wait and see how it impacts Indians as well. My colleague Rohit Sharma joins me for more on this. Rohit, big news coming in. Florida governor directing the board of universities to scrap H1B visas. Maybe it is for the Chinese, but what about Indians there?
Well, look, I think it's pretty surprising that he did that. I mean, he said he wants to pull the plug on H1B visas, and there are about 400 employees from foreign countries that actually work in the state universities in Florida. It will eventually impact. I mean, he did talk about Chinese people on H1B visas working in the Florida state universities, which is what he can, in a way, control, in the sense that he could direct the board of the directors to do that. But look, states usually do not have that kind of authority to cancel visas. So what he could do is he could say, well, look, I can pull funding from state universities if you keep hiring people on these H1B visas. So I think that's the reason, or that's the way he could justify it. But most likely, I think this would be challenged in courts, and we'll probably see this going all the way up, to the courts to see what they decide and what they can do. Also, the fact that Governor DeSantis is trying to sort of make a name for himself. We've seen how President Trump has said that Marco Rubio and JD Vance could be the next in line to be the president, and this could be his way of making sure that he's also seen and heard.
Well, he is certainly positioning himself. Let's see whether that really translates into traction within the MAGA voters. Rohit, stay on with us. Let's look at the other big story that we'll be tracking through tonight and tomorrow morning. Less than 24 hours to go for the much anticipated and much hyped Trump-Xi meet in Busan on the sidelines of the APEC summit. This is going to take place on October 30th. Trump with South Korean President, there were meetings that were taking place over there. President Trump, who is on a three-country Asian tour, is in South Korea's Gyeongju right now. This is the third and the final Asia tour. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung gifted the U.S. President with a replica gold crown and awarded him with a Grand Order of Mugunghwa, the country's highest decoration. World leaders who had gathered for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, that's APEC, in South Korea, were joined by President Trump for a special dinner hosted by South Korean President Lee Jae-myung. As the U.S. President expressed his confidence in the progress of trade negotiations with South Korea, he also said that he was looking forward to meeting with his Chinese counterpart, President Xi Jinping. The president's visit to this summit came as North Korea tested sea-to-surface cruise missiles in another display of its growing military capabilities. This will be the first face-to-face meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister and President Xi Jinping after Trump returned to power. Both leaders will meet in Busan, where bilateral relations and issues of mutual interest will be top priority. According to the Chinese Foreign Ministry, both leaders will have and in-depth communication on strategic and long-term issues concerning China-US relations, as well as major issues of common concern.
Heads of state diplomacy plays an irreplaceable role in providing strategic guidance for China-US relations. At this meeting, the two heads of state will have in-depth exchanges on strategic and long-term issues concerning China-US relations, as well as other major issues of common concern. We are willing to work with the US side to promote the generation of positive outcomes from this meeting, providing new guidance for and injecting new impetus into a steadily growing China-US relationship.
Now, Trump had earlier said he and President Xi were going to achieve a good deal for the two countries. The meeting is expected to stabilize volatile markets after tensions renewed with China imposing export control tariffs. But on the sidelines of ASEAN summit, top US and Chinese officials met and a consensus was reached on delaying export control tariffs on rare earth minerals. The meeting is also expected to lower fentanyl-linked tariffs on China. The US has imposed 20% fentanyl-linked tariffs. Both leaders are also expected to talk on NVIDIA's advanced AI chips with China. Besides fentanyl and AI chips, another major concern are soybeans. According to trade sources, China's state-owned COFCO bought 3 US soybean cargoes ahead of the talks. This is China's first purchase from this year's US harvest. Xi will be in South Korea from Thursday to Saturday for the summit, and Trump will not attend the regional summit meeting.
Tomorrow I meet with President Xi of China, and I look forward to that. And we've been talking a lot over the last month, and I think we're going to have something that's going to be very, very satisfactory to China and to us. I think it's going to be a very good meeting. I look forward to it tomorrow morning. We meet. I appreciate it very much, and I won't forget the trip. And we'll be working together, and you have a little bit of a cloud over your country, and we're going to get that cloud solved. You have a neighbor that hasn't been as nice as they could be, and I think they will be. I know Kim Jong-un very well, and I think things will work out very well.
Rohit, the fact that the leaders are meeting, a leadership intervention required at this point in time, what do the two sides expect, particularly DC?
Well, I think in America, I think there is the pressure on this administration, especially when it comes to farmers, and soybeans is one of those things that has been discussed at length, in addition to the rare earth elements that has been talked about. So I think President Trump definitely wants to ensure that he comes out with a trade deal that he can bring back to Washington, D.C. He's praised Xi Jinping a lot of times, saying, he know how he works, he respects him. And look, if there are very few countries who stood up to the U.S. like the Chinese have, and they haven't been afraid of going into confrontation with the Americans. So I think President Trump, in a way, understands the reality, which is to work with China, and that's what he's doing. And they have a framework which they have talked about. So we're looking forward to seeing if they do sign a trade deal or what kind of advancement they make on that front. Also, one thing that's been missing in all these conversations is, we used to hear a lot about Indo-Pacific and security in the Indo-Pacific, and none of the cabinet members have made that. So that's also an interesting approach as to why, nobody's talking about Indo-Pacific right now. But Washington watchers are definitely looking to see what happens or what transpires between both the leaders, and we meet in person tomorrow.
Right. Well, in fact, Pete Hegseth even went back to the older term, Asia-Pacific. That's a huge shift. We'll have to wait and see how China welcomes that move. Stay on with us. U.S. President Donald Trump praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi as tough leader. Trump also claimed there is going to be a trade deal with India. The question remains when and on what terms, or whose terms. Trump in South Korea, and all eyes are on the meeting that is to take place between Chinese President Xi Jinping and President Trump. But before that, speaking at the APEC conference, he reiterated his role in ensuring a ceasefire between two nuclear-armed neighbors in May.
Amid ongoing trade talks between India and the US, President Trump heaped praises for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. During an address in South Korea, ahead of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, Trump confirmed that US is close to a trade deal with India. The US had imposed an additional tariff of 25% on India for purchasing oil and energy from Russia. India now faces a total of 50% tariff. President also took the opportunity to reiterate his claim of brokering a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, averting a war between two nuclear nations. India has consistently denied any third country involvement.
And I'm reading that 7 planes were shot down. They're going at it, and they're really starting to go. And it's a big thing. These are 2 nuclear nations, and they're really going at it. And I called Prime Minister Modi. I said, we can't make a trade deal with you. No, we must make a trade deal. I said, no, we can't. You're starting a war with Pakistan. We're not going to do it. And then I called Pakistan. I said, we're not going to do trade with you because you're fighting with India. And, 2 nuclear nations. And they said, no, you should let us fight. They both said that. They're warring. They're strong people, I'll tell you what.
But then came the twist. As Trump praised Prime Minister Modi for being tough and dud, an impression of the Prime Minister, he also praised both Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir.
Minister Modi is the nicest looking guy. He says, and he looks like you'd like to have your father, like, he's a killer. He's tough as hell. No, we will fight. I said, whoa, this is the same man that I know. So I'm doing a trade deal with India, and I have great respect and love. As you know, for Prime Minister Modi, we have a great relationship. Likewise, the Prime Minister of Pakistan is a great guy, and the Field Marshal, they have a Field Marshal. You know why he's a Field Marshal? He's a great fighter. He really is. He's a great guy, too. And so I know them all.
Trump, who is in South Korea, will meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. This will be their first face-to-face meeting since Trump returned to the White House. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, Amazon is set for its biggest layoff ever, cutting 30,000 corporate jobs as AI reshapes its future. But is this strategic transformation or a sign of deeper trouble ahead? Here's a report by Shaurik Shaha.
In a shocking twist from one of the world's biggest tech giants, Amazon is reportedly gearing up for its largest layoff in history, with as many as 30,000 corporate employees set to lose their jobs. From human resources and operations to Amazon Web Services and devices, almost every department is on the chopping block. According to reports, managers were briefed on how to handle the fallout, and affected employees are expected to receive email notifications starting Tuesday morning. This round of cuts represents nearly 10% of Amazon's white-collar workforce, a massive shakeup for a company that employs over 1.5 million people worldwide. But Amazon isn't alone. Big tech is bleeding jobs. Microsoft, Meta, Google, and Intel have all announced deep layoffs this year, with the industry collectively cutting nearly 100,000 positions in 2024 alone. So what's behind this massive downsizing? Experts point to overhiring during the pandemic, slowing growth, and even a pivot to artificial intelligence. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy has already hinted that as AI takes over more roles, some jobs will simply disappear. Yet, even as Amazon trims its corporate ranks, it's hiring 25,000 seasonal workers to gear up for the holiday rush, showing that while one part of the tech giant is shrinking, another is still expanding. A brutal reality check for big tech, and a clear sign that in the age of AI, even the biggest players aren't untouchable. With Shaurik Shaha, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
Ahead of global events related to the United Nations Climate Summit, about 2,500 Brazilian police and soldiers launched a massive raid on a drug trafficking gang in Rio de Janeiro. Take a look at this report.
About 2,500 Brazilian police and soldiers launched a massive raid on a drug trafficking gang in Rio de Janeiro. This is the most deadly police operation ever, which targeted a major gang days before the city hosts global events related to the United Nations Climate Summit known as COP30.
Agora temos 56.
So far, we have arrested 56 criminals. To date, 18 criminals have been neutralized, 31 rifles seized, and a large quantity of drugs confiscated, which cannot yet be assessed because they are still in the midst of combat.
Que ainda não tem como aferir.
As part of the operation, police officers stormed into the notorious Red Command stronghold.
Uma operação maior do que a de 2010.
It's a larger operation than in 2010, and unfortunately this time, as throughout the entire term, we do not have the support of armored vehicles or federal security and defense forces. We are alone in this fight today, and we are carrying out the largest operation in history.
Nem de segurança, nem de defesa.
This massive operation has led to fear among the residents.
I'm very scared and apprehensive because there are no buses. We are here in the middle of the street, exposed to anything that might happen.
Police have often conducted large-scale operations against criminal groups ahead of major events in Rio, which hosted the 2016 Olympics, the 2024 G20 Summit and BRICS Summit in July. Next week, Rio hosts the C40 Global Summit of Mayors Tackling Climate Change. It is run up to COP30, the United Nations Climate Summit, to be held in the Amazon city of Belém from November 10th to November 21st. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
At least 63 people, including 24 children, have been killed in Israel's new round of airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. The airstrikes follow what Israel said violations of the ceasefire by Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has instructed the military to carry out immediate and powerful strikes in Gaza. The Israel Defense Forces attacked multiple areas, including Khan Yunis in the south and Gaza City in the north. Hamas, however, has denied violating the truce deal and accused the Israeli military of blatantly violating the ceasefire with its attacks. The Israeli military said Hamas had planted the remains of an Israeli hostage at an excavation site before calling in a Red Cross team and pretending it had found a missing hostage to create a false impression of efforts to locate bodies. A drone video showed 3 men, backed by a bulldozer, placing a white bag at a Gaza excavation site and then covering it with earth and rocks. The white bag, which the army said had contained the remains of an Israeli hostage, was uncovered in front of men wearing what appeared to be ICRC red vests and other men who were taking photos of the unearthing. The ICRC said its team was unaware that the remains had been planted at the site before their arrival. In a written statement, it said that it was unacceptable that a fake recovery was staged. On Statecraft today, we talk about the worst humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in front of a muted global audience. Sudan is bleeding while the world scrolls on. 10 million displaced, cities in ruins, children starving, and silence. This is not just war, it's a genocide in slow motion. Watch the full episode on India Today Global's YouTube channel. Did you know that the worst humanitarian crisis in the world right now is happening in Sudan? A country torn apart by a brutal civil war that has displaced over 10 million people, and according to some reports, killed more than 150,000 people, pushing half the population towards starvation. Entire cities lie in ruins. Over 250,000 trapped civilians in Al-Fashir now wait for the inevitable, a bloodbath. Drone strikes have flattened neighborhoods, ethnic killings are underway, and the world scrolls on. No emergency UN summit, no Save Sudan hashtags, no global outrage. As famine spreads, bodies pile up, and cities burn, how many must die before the world admits that Sudan is bleeding to death? Join us as we tell you about the monsters behind the carnage. Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. The Sudanese civil war is not new. It is an endless loop of betrayal, coups, and carnage. Since April 2023, two generals have turned an entire nation into a battlefield. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan's Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF, against Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo's Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. What began as a past struggle over army integration has spiraled into one of Africa's, or the world's, worst humanitarian catastrophes. According to UN reports, nearly 30 million Sudanese are in desperate need of aid, with 12 million forced from their homes. And while official figures stay muted, the new Arab estimates the real death toll could be as high as 150,000. Al-Fasher's fall marks not just a military defeat, but the possible dismemberment of a country. Can Sudan survive when even its soul has been split apart? Sudan, Africa's third largest country, is disintegrating in real time. Once hailed as the bridge between the Arab world and Africa, it is now a graveyard of broken promises and unburied bodies. The RSF's capture of Al-Fasher on October 26, 2025 is more than a battlefield win. It's the collapse of human empathy. Recent reports from the ground paint an increasingly grim picture of Al-Fasher city. Units of the Rapid Support Forces, led by Commander Isa Abulolo, have reportedly executed more than 15 civilians at point-blank range. Sudan isn't just another African crisis. It's a strategic prize, a crossroads between Africa and West Asia, bordered by 7 countries and blessed with an 800-kilometer Red Sea coastline. Sudan sits on one of the most valuable pieces of real estate on earth. 12 to 15% of global maritime trade flows through the Red Sea. Oil tankers, cargo ships, and food supplies worth over $1 trillion a year. Sudan's Port Sudan is the choke point between global commerce and chaos. Its proximity to Saudi Arabia, just 30 kilometers across the water, gives it immense geopolitical weight. Whoever controls Sudan controls a gateway to West Asia, Africa, and Asia itself. And beneath its soil lie gold, oil, and fertile land, the kind of resources that make foreign powers circle like vultures. By late 2025, Sudan isn't just a failed state, it's a humanitarian black hole. Over 30 million people depend on aid that can't reach them. The RSF governs with guns. The army governs with airstrikes. The transitional dream of 2019, freedom, peace, justice, has turned into a nightmare. Even if a ceasefire is declared tomorrow, rebuilding will take generations. The wounds, ethnic, political, and psychological, are too deep. Sudan's crisis isn't just about territory or power, it's about survival. Sudan's civil war exposes not just the brutality of its generals, but the moral bankruptcy of the world that watches. When history asks who killed Sudan, will we dare say we all did?